everybody. Welcome to another episode of Windshield Time, the podcast where we help you use your windshield time to turn learning into earning. And you can tell by the way I broke just now that I'm accompanied once again by the ever present Harold James Walker Jr., affectionately known as J Dub. Hello. You can
Are
talk.
we encountering each other now?
Yeah,
Typically, you want me to
you
wait
messed
until
up.
the
Anyway,
riff
today
goes.
on Windshield Time, we're going to talk about navigating minefields. So stay where you're
tuned. Don't
Stay
turn the
tuned.
dial.
at. All right. So we totally blew that intro, but we're going to keep it.
Yeah, it's the
We're-
best.
I've been told it's pretty good. I've been
I
told
had
people
somebody-
like it.
I had a guy tell me that he really enjoyed our banter.
Half the audience. That's awesome.
right.
50% of the audience likes it.
The audience rating is through the roof. It's like Rotten Tomatoes. We're at least at 73 on Rotten Tomatoes with this, episode. And they like the new format too. We don't have a video format yet accessible. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
Alex, when are we going to get video?
Oh,
we have one.
congratulations. That's awesome.
And I know we have others in the can, as they say in the industry.
Sure.
That's a little bit industry lingo for you. You wouldn't understand. But hey, peeling back the curtain for you here,
That's
breaking the
right.
fourth wall for you.
Yeah, behind the velvet rope over here.
So Alex gets some of it before we start, but I always like our conversations before we start.
It makes one of us.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Alex, do you see what I mean about James's face for radio now? So, and today what we were talking about song. We talk about music a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And James is a really good guitar player, so he starts picking things, and I think I recognize songs. And a lot of times I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong.
Sure.
But so let's just run the gamut.
Yes.
Today we did Eric Clapton. You were playing Eric Clapton.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Pearl Jam. Bonnie
Tyler. Soundgarden. Alex
Oh, yeah.
came in with Soundgarden.
Rush.
We did talk about
The
Rush.
Beatles.
And who was the drummer guy you talked about?
Oh, Estepario, the drummer on TikTok,
Hmm.
who's stupid, like unbelievably good. So yeah,
Hmm.
we went all over the place. We were actually
Oh.
even singing. Now that's not going to be part of our audience's pleasure. We'll just say
That's what you think.
Pre-recorded.
Because when I ask you to sing Alive by Pearl Jam and do your Eddie
Mhm.
Vedder impersonation,
Yeah.
I knew we were recording.
Nice.
Alex, I count on you to send me that footage, please. So, touche. Let's get a drink of coffee and let's roll.
It's not unawkward the way you have to drink coffee with these microphones. That
No,
looked like one of those. That looked like one of those like wedding celebration, like drink your champagne with the other guy.
So, all right, let's talk about minefields.
Yes, navigating minefields.
We need to appeal to all the D's out there going, would you please just get to the point? So, minefields.
Yes.
Let's talk about what are the minefields that we have to navigate sometimes.
So whenever we talk minefields, this is a place where a customer inserts something into our process to either derail us, to throw us off, but it might not be as specific or as valid as a true objection. So when you start with the conversation with the customer, you've got, 45 minutes to an hour or so before you start talking money. When the money comes out, you hear, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my
classic
spouse. Those are objections.
Steam,
Right?
Mhm.
Before that, you're going to have people that are frustrated with you at the door because you're late. You're going to have people angry because this is a callback, or you should have caught it last time, or the last guy didn't do this. You're going to have people who don't want you to go through your technical diagnostic process, either because they don't have time, or they don't want you to go into that room, or they don't want to access the attic, or you're going to have people trying to get, hey, no, I know, it's just a capacitor. It's a real simple thing, not a big deal. How much are we talking type today? So what it is how do we deal with this? Do we need to give it the same validity as a true objection to help them navigate? Or do we
I
need to
don't
get
know,
past it,
James. Do we
right?
need to do that? Yeah, I think we do.
Well, okay. So Chris, why don't we talk about, because I actually,
Let's do it.
I did, this is going to be a swell topic.
Here we go. But I know what you're talking about. I've been in that position before where, walk to the door.
Right out of the gates.
Right out of the gate.
Derailing you.
Well, and a lot of times too is, especially if you know you're going to a house that your company's been there before.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you the technician perspective on it. And let's say the customer is upset because we didn't catch it last time.
Right.
Okay.
And we all know who the technician was.
Exactly. Well, no, that's what I was going to say. It
was Joe. It's always
we
Joe.
have in our mind, because then because the first thing you do is, hey, can you tell me when you call comes over your iPad or whatever, you're like, you call out, hey, who was out here before? Or you look at the history, see who was out there before, and you're like, oh,
that guy,
Joe.
Seriously,
really?
Every shop has a Joe.
Joe.
And if your shop doesn't have a Joe, you're the Joe. Keep going.
If you look around and you don't see Joe, you're Joe. Well, no, not every shop has one, but that is what you tend to think sometimes, especially because I can tell you, a technician, like for me, if I went on a callback on you twice, you were the worst technician ever. Right. I was thinking everything I'm going to do behind you or everything you do is going to be a callback now because it happened twice. Never mind that it happened to me twice already before where I was caused a callback.
Right.
But you're thinking, okay, what did he not do? We tend to go negative always, right? And so, and we're always tend to be put on the back foot by the customer, so we're in defense mode. And it's not our fault because, wait, I'm the hero. Why are you upset at me? I'm coming here to be the hero.
Right.
And so that can be one, and we can make it worse as a technician. We can make it worse by always having that thought in our head that, oh, well, Joe was here, or, oh, somebody probably didn't do this thing.
Right. Well, I always tell my guys, one of the concepts we're going to talk about is how we navigate this, and one of the components is empathy, obviously. But I think that when the customer feels slighted and attacks us, we default into sympathy, and we often apologize. Now, I am great with apologizing for things that we need to apologize for. But I found that often to get back in that customer's good graces, we apologize for things that might not need to be apologized for, that by virtue of apologizing, you suddenly own
it.
The outcome now, right?
Yeah. No matter what you actually find after that.
I'm so sorry we screwed up the last time we were here. Hey, I'm sorry. We probably didn't catch it on our first go through. Okay, that's a callback. Even if you did, now in their mind,
now you've created that.
And you pay.
Well, let me give you another one too, how it can go a different way. You get there, they're upset, they're making out like the last guy didn't do anything. You're on the back foot again. I watched rugby league this morning, and the Australians were saying back foot a lot, so I guess that's where it came from. But,
Blimey.
By the way, if anybody knows the outcome of the Dolphins versus the Storm, don't tell me. I have to find out for myself.
Is that the WNBA?
No, it is not.
Okay,
that is the National Rugby League from Australia. 2 forms of rugby. This is rugby league, not rugby union, which is when everybody knows, blah, blah, blah. So the other way that could go is you get there, the customer's upset, you start apologizing, you start trying to own that, and, oh, the customer's always right, and all this kind of stuff. And then you're on the hook now. You go to the thermostat, and they don't have it set right. And that's the only problem. Or if you live like in Virginia, where I did my work, in North Carolina, you're required to put a red safety switch, light switch, higher than a regular light switch, either right inside the door. I think it was right inside the door of where the furnace is. And so what would happen a lot of times is people would walk out of their garage, hit the light switch, and they hit the wrong light switch. That's why you're supposed to mount it higher.
Right.
And so you'd find things like that.
Sure.
But typically, that's the kind of stuff that the other way it goes, where it's totally the customer's fault, but now you've owned everything.
Sure.
And so then it becomes even more awkward for the customer.
Right.
Because now you have to go tell them, and you
idiot.
can't go, see, you're an idiot. You didn't have your thermostat set right. This is not our fault at all. You can't really do that. So that's another place where you could apologize and own it.
Yeah.
So instead of apologizing, what should we do?
Okay. So we're going to unpack.
Because it could be we're late.
Yes.
Through no fault of anybody. We got hung up in traffic. There was an accident, whatever. We're late. What other things could they be ready for when we get there?
Right. So often pre-diagnosed. They already think they know what the system is, and they dismiss the thoroughness with which we need to. It's a real simple fix, not that big of a deal. It's just a little air raid or nothing. And they discredit the need for comprehensive diagnosis. They disallow full diagnosis because they have people coming in later. Well, dude, can you just knock this out of the way? I got people coming in 15, 20 minutes, and I really need this done. I mean, there's thousands of these. Now, what I say is we can get into the solution at some point. Physically, we don't need to give this idea as much space and as much room to breathe as we would say a true objection or condition. Because if somebody says I need to talk to my spouse or think about it, that is deciding whether or not I need to move forward with a solution and the investment attached. These things are simply trying to derail us, and it's a 3-point process. 1, you empathize. 2, you reassure. And then 3, and this is the most important one, is you redirect. And so historically, if somebody has I'm frustrated at you because you are showing up late, you could empathize. Hey, Mrs. Jones, it's frustrating, and I understand how frustrating it is to have to wait for somebody. You can reassure. The good news is I am here. We did have to take care of another customer to make sure that they were safe. Hopefully the office called you. Now that I'm here, I can redirect. Why don't we go ahead and get to the thermostat and get started so that we can move forward? And that redirect component is really important, because if you don't redirect, then what they do is they have a tendency to camp on the issue and try to make more of it than it might need to be.
Well, they might have a need to be right.
And they might have a need to be right. But if you empathize.
Personality profile comes into it.
If you empathize and you reassure, then theoretically you should be able to redirect, and they're like, okay. They try to get a quote. No, it's just a real simple flapper. I mean, like, how much are we talking today? And you're at the door, right? So empathize. Hey, I understand. Hopefully it's just a flapper. That would be something that's relatively simple. The good news is I'm going to go through a thorough process to make sure if it's that, if there's something else, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the toilet together and see what's going on? And now I've completely moved past the fact that we need to have a conversation about why I'm not talking money yet, into the invitation to have them redirect their attention towards something more in line with my process.
Well, what you've done is you've taken someone who's being unreasonable, and you've left them in a position where only thing they can choose is reasonable.
Right. Or if they choose to be unreasonable, then they're aware of their unreasonability.
Yeah, and then it becomes cartoonish because it's way disproportionate to the situation. And I faced that too, where people just dig in, and I probably wasn't handling it well back then. But I think this has a little bit of shades, because we've alluded to objections, full on what we know as objections. It alludes a little bit, it has a little shade of leap to it. Listen, empathize, ask questions, problem solve. Because if you think about the 3 steps you just mentioned, they fit, but we're not
digging in to ask these deep questions. But tell me why.
We're not trying to find out if it's a smokescreen or a condition. It's usually a true condition, which is they think it's this, or they're upset about this. So give us an example of we're late. That seems to be a simple one.
Yeah.
So give us an example of handling that.
So, oh gosh, sure nice that you guys showed up. Mrs. Jones, I completely understand. I am so sorry that we had to be here later than we anticipated. Hopefully the office called you. We did get caught up with Mrs. Smith because we needed to make sure that she is taken care of just like we're going to take care of you. Good news is I'm here. I'm going to go through my full process and take care of you just like I would take care of them. Why don't we move over to the thermostat and get started with our process today? Is my van parked okay? Like, there's no conversation there for me. Like, but why don't you? It's we're moving on.
Yeah, because you're not going to win. You're not going to win that,
right? Same with callbacks. Well, you guys showed up to finish the mess you made earlier, Mrs. Jones. I understand how frustrating it is to think you got something fixed and it comes back and doesn't work like you expect it to. The good news is I'm a senior technician. I'm going to go through this comprehensively and assess what's going on. Talk you through what we can do to figure this out today. Why don't we go ahead and look at, and then I'm into the process.
Because ultimately, they want their thing fixed.
They want to feel like they're heard, and they might want money or discount or free or something else on top of it. They're not going to ask you that. And if you bypass it by a redirect, and this is where the ask question of leap comes in. I'm not asking questions, say like, well, how big of a deal has it been? I'm really sorry that that's happened. I mean, has it been inconvenient? I want to move on. And my redirect is my asking questions.
Yeah.
I say, why don't we look at, what would it mean if, is my van parked okay? I am changing the topic because I have validated that my position is the correct position, you understand that I empathize with you, but I'm not going to give this more oxygen than it needs to derail this conversation.
Yeah. And I think that kind of a side trail here is the customer might have, depending on their personality profile, depending on a lot of how they interact with you, it's just how they were raised and their own experiences and all that kind of stuff. Their sense of justice, their righteous anger, that needs to come out, those kind of fairness,
Mhm.
goes back to sense of justice. So their personality profile will come into that pretty heavily at that point, especially since it will be amplified because they're in a stressful situation at that
Yep.
point. So just be aware of that. But these are things that we face all the time. We don't like to, but these kind of things happen. So we've addressed a lot of the ones at the beginning of the we get there,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Customers meeting us at the door, they're have one of these things. I think another place where we can get, call it a minefield if you want, is again it's a borderline objection, but there's no
Mhm.
money at stake,
Right.
and it's really just getting them to let you do your process.
Sure. Like shortchanging, like I have to rush. I need to be gone. We need to have
Mhm.
people over. I don't want you upstairs. Why don't you just look at the outside unit?
Mm.
Name in the blank, fill in the blanks there, right?
Yeah, or you're going through your process and you're on credibility, agenda, price, agenda. Here's your checklist. You're gonna go through it. It's gonna take. No, you don't have to do all that. I only want you to do this. And so, when a customer starts to push you off your process, it's the same thing. It you can look at it as, okay, well, I can leap this, but really, let's talk about the ask question again, like you talk about the redirect. Is so customers, well, no, I don't want you to. I don't want you to go upstairs. I don't want you going upstairs right now. And or the classic is, well, why do you got to come in the house if the air conditioner's outside, right? Or why do you need to come in the house? The water heater's right here,
Sure.
right? Uh, so if you think about it in terms of leap, we listen, we want to understand what they're saying, and there's a reason they don't want us in the house.
Right.
Whether that reason is they've got illegal
Time
activity
or-
going on and they just don't want you to see it,
Sure.
right? Or it's they are embarrassed
Oh,
about
I
their
got
house.
one. Time, crime, or grime. That's it.
Oh wow,
Time,
Alex,
crime, grime.
we need to highlight that.
Okay, that's it. Time, they don't have time to do it. Crime, they've got some person tied up in the basement getting beaten. Or grime, they're a hoarder and they don't want you to see their.
Interesting that the crime was violent with you. It's interesting.
What I guess you like marijuana.
Maybe they got bricks
Growing?
of cocaine on their table or
Bricks
something.
of cocaine.
I mean, I don't even know if they
keep
call them that.
scratching their nose. Yeah.
Yeah. What is you got white stuff? Oh, it's baking a cake.
Baking powder.
So I like that. What were the three again?
Time, crime, or grime.
Ooh, yes. I like that.
Man, it's a T-shirt.
I mean, it's almost like if I did these mics weren't like $3,000, it might be a mic drop moment. Mic drop moment, right?
Right.
So I like that. But there could be, depending on the reason they don't want you in the house.
Right.
Well, you listen because there's a reason behind it and you want to try to understand that. You empathize. I understand this is an inconvenience having someone come in your house like that unexpectedly. But because the system's connected and yes, I can look at the outdoor unit, I still need to look at the indoor section too. And we want to make sure we get a thorough diagnosis here so we get it right the first time. So wouldn't it make sense for me to go into the areas inside where I need to be to do that? So we're redirecting and we're giving them the illusion of control on that.
Sure.
So it's still their decision.
Right.
But now it's unreasonable
it's much
to
more
exclude
reasonable.
me. Yes.
Right. Exactly.
It's reasonable to let me go in, and it's much more unreasonable to keep me out. And so, when you really think about it, if you go back 30,000 foot view, realistically, the two things we're talking about, tell me your three things again.
Time, crime, and grime?
No, not that.
Empathy, reassure, redirect.
Yes. So, AIR. So your acronym is ERR.
We err on the side of caution.
Man, you got a couple today.
Yeah,
that's
that's
pretty
right.
good. You're
That's
pretty
right.
good. Wow. And we're only 20 minutes in,
I
and
mean,
you've blown it right now. You don't
We're
got
wrapping
anything up.
We're done.
So, but when you think about that, and you think about Leap, and this is what I think is good about a lot of our content is that, disc profiles,
Yeah.
communication, it applies to life.
Right.
I mean, think about how you handle one of your children.
My kid wants to go to, you know, can you take me out and get me a treat or something like that, right? And I'm like, in
Do
the
they
middle
ask
of
for a
work
treat?
day. Oh, my daughter does all the time. She's
Well,
like, can we go get a treat?
you probably would do anything for Ellie Run.
To a point, yeah. It still is mildly inconvenient when I'm in my PJs and it's like 9:30. She's like, Daddy, I would really like a treat. I'm like, me too. Sorry, but
Wait, hold on. Alex, I think you heard it too.
PJs.
Did you say PJs?
I don't wear PJs. I just thought saying boxer briefs would be awkward for everybody.
Okay. For the first time ever, we might have to cut that. Nobody wants that vision while they're driving. Come on, J-Dub. But you did say PJs.
Me either. You're the one who camped on it. Let me
Because
empathize with you. Let me reassure you. Let me redirect.
Yeah, okay. Do it.
Okay, right.
So, but my point
you do
is,
it with family. You do it in life. So unpack
you do it in life all the time, just like Leap. You do it in life all the time. Well, you could, if you remembered that ultimately, and this is, I think, what has to come through all of these podcasts and everything we teach and train, is it's person-to-person communication.
Yeah.
And one of you is trying to persuade the other one to do what you want them to do.
Sure.
Or to allow you to do what you want to do. You know, when you were a teenager trying to get your parents to let you borrow the car, or trying to get your parents to let you go with your friends to this place or whatever, you know, even back then, you know, my 2-year-old grandson, who is verbal but pretty much limits his words to car and okay, even he is negotiating.
Yeah.
Right? And his negotiation tends to be pretty simple, which is do what I want, or I'm going to throw a fit.
Sure.
And you're not going to get to do what you want because I'm throwing a fit.
There you go.
So negotiation happens and conflict resolution happens. And when we say conflict, people think we're talking about some big crazy thing. But really, conflict resolution is just two people agreeing on going in the same direction about something, right?
Well, the thought process, and this might be a little bit black and white, but the thought process is that every conversation is an exercise in persuasion. Every single conversation is, you're trying, even if you're just having a conversation with the cashier and saying, hey, Susan, nice to meet you. You're trying to persuade them to like you, to listen to you, to give you something more. Any conversation that you have is an exercise in persuading the other person to see things more from your perspective, possibly, than even their own perspective. And so
that's where ethics comes in, though.
Sure.
Ethics comes in
right
where
now, all I'm saying
you're not
is,
saying hi to the lady at Starbucks like you did this morning just to get her to give you a free cup of coffee.
Well, that's exactly right. So there's a place of where, though, I'm not doing it to get something from her. I'm doing it to give something to her. But in that, there is a place where, even at the very least, I'm persuading her to feel valued today.
Yeah.
Right? So when you speak, there is not just the meaning of the speech, there is the intent behind the speech that you're trying to create an outcome from, right? And yeah, it's just insightful to realize that you're having these conversations differently with different people, and you have to take the measure of the person in front of you, and you know,
I think the two things make it different, like technician, in-home salespeople. Two things make it different to them, which is, and to from a different perspective of the homeowner. But for instance, knowing back into our original conversation here, knowing that you're going to a place where the customer is most likely going to be a little upset about something.
Right.
Okay. Well, now we're already in a conciliatory mode.
A reactive.
Because the customer's always right. You know, so that changes things. But going into people's home changes it, and asking people to spend money.
Sure.
And it's not even asking people to spend money. It's knowing someone's going to have to spend money. And then your prejudice about money come into it and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's worth talking about how, yes, we're talking about very specific minefields, but you navigate these minefields in everyday life all the time.
Sure.
And so the more you realize that, the more you'll apply this principle into your daily life, which makes it a little more second nature when you end up with these situations with customers, right?
The one thing I would challenge is I 100% agree with everything you've said. I think what comes naturally on the air is empathize and reassure. My daughter is complaining, hey, babe, I understand. I promise you we're going to go do this at some point this week. Most of the time what's going to take practice is the redirect.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to change the conversation in alignment with where we're going, but remove this from being the obstacle towards our process, right? So I think there's just a choice to not camp where the customer wants you to camp.
Yeah. What are some other of these situations that we might run into on calls?
I've seen some before where they have a history with other companies that they project onto you,
Oh, yeah.
right? So what would be a scenario how would that play out? The last time these guys didn't go through a process like this.
Well, it could be like that, or a very common one was, we had such and such company out here for every year for 5 years, and they never said a word about it.
Never said a word about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could go in and say, hey, the last time somebody had like a $99 show up and clean the drain fee, and they tried to sell us a whole new liner.
Mm-hmm.
Last time somebody used a checklist on me, all they did was come back and tell me I needed to spend $6,000.
Yeah, I've even had all your guys are the same. You just want to come in here and sell me a new one.
Right.
And I think that's where, again, that's unreasonable. So and again, it comes to another principle. When customers are being unreasonable, you have to get them to understand what it is to be reasonable, and they usually will opt for reasonability. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Reasonableness? Reasonableness is better.
Reasonability, I believe.
Reasonabilistic.
Did I catch autistic in there?
Yeah, you what? Yes, you probably did. You probably did. But I think that, again, we come back to the fact that we deal with psychology every single day in what we do, and we've got to understand that we're dealing with human feelings is what we're dealing with. And that's why it's a lot easier to deal with the technical things, because the breaker panel does not have feelings.
Sure.
You don't have to worry about that. The water heater doesn't have feelings. So it's easier for a technician to have a conversation with a water heater through visual inspection, through measuring things and taking readings and things like that. It's very much easier to do that than it is to deal with situations with customers. I thought of another customer situation I wanted to bring up, but it just went right out of my head. It was probably right around the PJ comment. I don't remember what it was.
They're wearing an inappropriate item of clothing.
That could be one.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, or none.
None.
I've encountered that before, which was jarring.
Disturbing, right?
Jarring, to say the least. But I think to wrap this topic up, it's that you as a technician are going to go into situations where it is not going to be ideal, and the customer is going to be preloaded and set up to maybe attack, but at the very least cause friction about what you're trying to do.
Right.
And the thing you got to remember is it's a human on the other side. They're dealing with stuff you don't know about personally and whatever. And you can only deal, though, with what you see, and you fall back onto process. Because anybody going into a negotiation, anybody going into any kind of conversation where they are trying to resolve an issue that's going to require making a recommendation and then possibly asking somebody for money to actually do that recommendation and resolve the issue, there has to be a process. You can't wing it. You can't. And the good news is we have technology that's on our side now that can help us, but we also have time to prepare.
Right.
Because we know the situation. Because very rarely do you get sent to one of these where you don't talk to someone first.
Right.
Either the previous technician or at least the dispatcher, manager, call taker, something like that. You talk to somebody before you go there. And so let's talk about how we can be better prepared. What steps could we take to be better prepared? And we'll wrap this up. First and foremost, if you're using a CRM software and you have a tablet and your calls are recorded, the incoming call is recorded, listen to that before you go. Listen to that while you're driving to the call. Obviously not with your iPad in your hands, over Bluetooth or whatever. But listen to that as you're driving to the call. Try to understand the customer's state of mind. They're going to be agitated, maybe, especially if it's a callback. Yeah, so and so was there 2 days ago, and now it's not working. Well, that customer already thinks they're paying nothing. You probably hear that.
Mm-hmm.
They could even be upset and say, I'm not paying another dime until you guys get it right. Whatever. You're going to hear those things. So be prepared. Prepare is the first letter of press play, right? So prepare. Listen to that call. Look at the history. See what was recommended and what was done the last time, so that when you go to the door, you have the information recalled already. You're not having to look it up. Because, again, if a customer's agitated, they want you to get to work as soon as possible. So be prepared to do that. And remember, ERR,
Empathize, reassure,
redirect. And, again, you already know LEAP, so it ties with that. It like I said, it's got the shadow of LEAP there. And just be prepared to handle it and know that you're dealing with a human being. And personality profile comes into it and those kind of things. But if you follow the process, if you follow the ERR, if you follow the process that you've been taught and how to communicate and recognize profile, adapt to profile, and realize, first and foremost, it's not your fault. Go in knowing it's not your fault.
Unless it is.
Unless you were the last person there.
Right.
So.
Hey, very quick. Hostage negotiation. Now, that is a picture of what's happening here on a much, much larger level.
Yes, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference.
There is a
Great
place
book.
of where what you need to do as a hostage negotiator is set boundaries. So the persons holding the hostages are saying, hey, I want pizza. I want an airplane flown into the road here in 20 minutes, and I want you to have $12 million in cash. And there's going to be places where you need to set boundaries. Hey, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to get $12 million. We won't have an airplane. Now, we will be able to talk about a helicopter at some time in the next, and we can talk pizza. So I think there's just a place of where, well, yeah, if there's an unreasonability, it doesn't serve that negotiation process well to say, well, maybe there's a pizza. I'm not sure. We might be able to get an airplane. It helps on the front side when it's brought up to establish through kindness, compassion, these are boundaries that I can't go across. And often people know at that point, okay, I'm just going to see if I could get away with it, right? And so it's just reframing reasonable expectations and be okay with that. Hey, you're asking something that's unreasonable, and be resolute about it. So anyways, you want to wrap up?
Sure.
If you have any questions. This is what Alex is doing.
This is wrap up. No, Alex is going. He's probably going like. So, yeah. So to wrap up, I thought that was great. Remember, empathize, reassure, redirect. That again, it's just something you're going to have to deal with as a technician. You're going to get those situations, but if you remember those things, it's going to help you disarm the situation or de-escalate the situation enough. And you'll be surprised as soon as that customer understands you get it and you're going to make it right by not over-promising, but you're going to make it right. They're going to calm down.
They'll let you do what you need to do.
But if you go into it and you apologize and you're falling all over yourself, you're just strengthening that customer's resolve because they're right.
Right.
So just remember that. Of course, we got to mention our classes coming up. It's pretty close. The next set of classes is coming up in, is it 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Well, 3 weeks. And it depends. I don't know if this will drop before then.
It might not. Anyway, go to our website, www.serveextra.com. Click on solutions. You'll see workshops there. Click on there. You'll see our next classes that come up here in Beautiful, Texas. And I think they spell it Budatiful, which is probably how most people think beautiful spelled.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, Buda, Texas. Also, like and share this podcast. You know, I'm sorry about James's face. I'm sorry about my face, but you're going to get some good nuggets out of this stuff.
The good news is they can't smell odors. So they have the voice, they have the eyes. There's always going to be that third sense that just won't.
Thank goodness we weren't recording 45 minutes before the podcast.
That's right.
The audio. James?
Yes.
What do we do at Service Excellence?
First, we tell them our name, James Walker.
Oh, yeah.
254-230-5266. James at Serve Extra. Chris?
Yeah, Elmore at serveextra.com, 254-733-7109er. And you did have a niner in there.
And at Service Excellence. We actually turn learning into earning.
Hi, everybody.